Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hi, how you doing? Let's have a disclaimer. Anybody listening to our podcast must be just itching for boring conversation.
Ah, it is what it is. Yeah. No. This week's conversation, we're talking
And
about
if we didn't entertain you, that's not our problem. It's yours.
exactly. Just blame somebody else. Kick the can. So we were talking earlier today about situations where we almost got arrested or got into trouble when we were teenagers.
Or we had that. Let's put it this way: there was the potential was there that if we would have been caught by the cops, for sure we would have been arrested. But we had the good luck of not being caught.
So you were saying a while ago about a time that you had a friend that was trying to use you as a mule to transfer drugs somewhere.
I was in high school, and I had a friend who was in a foreign country, American guy who I was friends with, and he was he was in a foreign country for a while, and he tells me this is when marijuana was a felony, and he tells me he's sending me a package of marijuana, and to be expecting it and just keep it at my house until he gets back to the States and picks it up, and not to tell my parents. So I had it on my mind for quite. I was walking around the entire day, hemming and hawing, thinking it over in my mind. And I finally realized, no, I've got to tell my parents. I cannot do this. I was always the type of kid there were certain things I had a conscience. And there were certain things that I just knew my parents really should know about. So I told my parents, and they were very calm about it. They were very good. They thanked me for telling them, assured me that I had done the right thing. And it was good that they knew about this. Well, Yom Kippur, as we're about to break our fast, and your aunts remember this very well, there's a knock at our door, and it's the FBI. And what surprised me was, if I were an FBI agent handling a possible marijuana distribution, I would think teenagers, like me, my sisters, no, they totally ignored us. Instead, they spoke to our parents. And they said evidently it was a sniffer dog that had intercepted the package. And my parents just, they were very good. They didn't want to get this young guy into trouble. They're going to wait for him when he came back from the States. They're going to talk to him themselves and really give it to him and say, don't you ever do this thing or whatever. But they were not the type of people that wanted to get anybody into trouble, especially a young person. Because, like I said, in those days, to be caught with marijuana in those days, even a little bit, whatever, could land you in jail for, would you believe, 15 years? Kid you not. It was very serious. Yeah, very serious in those days. So they said they knew nothing about it. And the agents took their word for it and said, fine, and just left. That was it. That was the end of it. And of course, when the guy came back, of course, they got on the phone. They just yelled, of course, they yelled at him, don't ever do this again. And he didn't, believe me, he didn't. Like I say, it was one of these crazy, kids do crazy things. And they realized this was not a bad guy. This was a guy who came from a decent house, was, decent guy, except that he thought he could make an easy buck. And, it wasn't anybody that really had any criminal history. And so that's why they said, don't listen, did you ever do this? And he didn't. He never tried to pull anything like that again. But then there was the incident when, remember when I was 7 years old at the movie theater?
Oh, yeah. We talked about that in a previous podcast.
Yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
Of course, I ran out of the movie theater before they could catch me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of anything else that could have landed. The pokey.
Well, I remember being a kid. And
oh yeah, one more incident. One more.
Oh, sure.
I was 14 years old, and I was dating an 18-year-old guy.
Okay.
And my parents were shopping. They were out of the house. He comes one Friday night, and he says to me, "Hey," he says, let's go. He says, let's go bar hopping in Washington. I said, okay, great idea. And I said, but I've got to leave a note for my parents. He says, I'll leave a note. And he takes a piece of paper and he writes down, dear Mr. and Mrs. Dickman, I am kidnapping your daughter to Washington, love, and his name. And then left it on the kitchen table. I mean, taking an 18-year-old guy, taking a 14-year-old girl to Washington, that could, technically across state lines, boy, technically he could have really been arrested and charged with a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you can get in some real trouble doing that stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say that I remember as a kid, I think I was maybe 7 or 8. I was at a store with Tati and the rest of the family, and there was this like some kind of maybe Tabasco or barbecue sauce that had a cowboy hat on it, and I really wanted the cowboy hat, so I like took it off the top, put it in my pocket, and then as we were driving back home, I showed the cowboy hat, I think, to my sister, I think Mushka, and then I think she said something or someone else said something that I stole it. Tati got so upset, he got really pissed off.
What did he do?
He slammed on his brakes. He did that. We turned around, and he made me go back to the store and give back the little cowboy hat to
That's very
the
good.
lady up front.
Very good. So what was her reaction?
I don't remember. I was just too embarrassed and shaking my boots as an 8-year-old kid. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, I remember one time Mushka, when she was little. She was like maybe 4 years old, maybe 4. She was in the living room playing with some toys, and I was bringing down some laundry to downstairs to the basement laundry room. I brought down the laundry. I was putting on the laundry and hanging up a few things. I couldn't have spent any more than maybe 20 minutes tops down there. I come up and she's in the living room still playing with the toys. I get a phone call. It's from 7 Mile Market. And they said, and the manager says, I think your little girl came in here and stole some candy. Remember they used to have those big bins of candy?
Yes,
years ago. You could shovel into bags and then they would weigh it and charge yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say there used to be a rule that like if it's on the floor, it's good to go. You can pick it up off the floor, but you can't take it from the box. So as a kid, you support on the floor first and then pick it up.
Where did you get that rule?
I don't know. It's some rule. I think the older siblings told it to me, like you can't touch it or whatever. Maybe it was my own personal like idea. Like I think this makes sense. I don't know.
Well, so anyway, I walked her. I said to the manager, I said, but my daughter's been in this house the whole time. It's impossible. And he said, no, I'm almost sure that was your daughter. She reached into one of the bins and took a couple pieces of candy and ran out of the store. So I walked over to her and I said, Mushka, did you steal some candy? And she put her head down. She put out a hand. She opened up her hand, and there were a couple pieces of candy that I ripped from the back. But the thing was, she was like 3 or 4. She ran across 7 Mile Lane, which is a major artery, and across the parking lot. It was a nice. It was a miracle she wasn't hit by a car. Honest miracle. And so I said to her, okay. I said, what you did was wrong, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to do a job around the house. I'm going to pay you. And then you're going to take the money. We're going to go to 7 Mile Market, and you're going to pay for the candy. I looked at the two. It was 2 little pieces. Probably would be. I felt it was like about 25 cents, maybe.
Probably a penny, Ema.
Yeah,
probably a couple pennies. I remember you going nuts because the Maryland State Fair incident of 1995,
no.
whatever. That was ridiculous. It was Mushki was very excited to go to the Maryland State Fair, and she opened up the door, and she unfortunately did a small tiny
I told her,
Non-existent, Nick.
I said, don't open the door. Wait, wait. And she was very excited. And you're
Yes,
right.
but
she
it was like
uh,
nothing. It was it wasn't even a big deal.
well,
The people themselves said
I
it wasn't a
was,
big deal, and you like insisted that like, oh no, please, and then like you penalized Mushki for something that like you personally wanted to do. It was just like
no, no,
ridiculous.
no. What it was, I always felt that if you kids did damage, that I felt very strongly that if any of my children do damage, I should pay. You know, the person should not have to,
Yeah,
it's my
sadomasochism
arthritis
is
and I should
also
have to
another
pay.
option. We're
Okay,
not here to we're
okay.
here to
Well,
enjoy like
yeah, well, I felt I did the right thing.
of course you did. Like you're the perfect mother. You did the right thing, and I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Should I put the gun down now?
Oh yeah, sure, whatever. You can't touch me. I'm in another state.
You can't shoot anybody through the cell phone, can you?
No, Ema.
Maybe it's virtually. I can
this-
do. I can draw. I can maybe I'll download a picture of a gun going off or something.
You could do something like that. You could send that through via chat, you know, or you could send a chat saying, "Hey, I'm going to shoot you right now," you know. But that's all you can do. You can't really. That'd be funny,
Okay.
like in the future, what you can do. But I have a question. Did your parents when they were kids, what kind of trouble did they get into?
Oh, I don't. They never told me about any real trouble they got into. I'm sure they kept that a secret, but there were little things. My mother said that there was a very strict rule in her family. Her parents were pogrom survivors and from Europe, and they were very strict that the girls, that she and her sister, had to come home immediately Friday afternoon, so that because their mother was working, it was the Depression, and their mother had to work the entire day in a factory. She did buttonholes in a garment factory.
Wow.
And they were very strict that the girls had to come home and clean the house for Shabbos. So my mother went to Western at the time, and they used to have Friday afternoon at 3:00. They would have these dances where they would, have the record player playing music and the girls dancing. It was an all girls school. There were no boys there, but the girls would dance with each other. You know what I mean? It was just a dance, And my mother never got a chance to go there. And one of her friends talked her into, oh, come on, you can go, you can come for just a little while, 10, 15 minutes. Come on, you should enjoy yourself a little bit. So my mother said, okay. And, being a teenager, of course, you lose track of the time, you're having a good time. And my mother didn't realize that she had really stayed there for, I don't know, like an hour or something like that. And she went home and she told me, that her father, who was a very strict Polish father, beat her with a belt.
Classic.
Yep.
I mean, if he didn't beat her, then he wouldn't love her.
In those days, right? In those days, that was acceptable.
Didn't Zadie run away from home to like New York when he was like 13?
He was 16. No, there were a few things he did when he was a little boy. One time he was curious as to what was on the other side of Druid Hill Park. So Druid Hill Park is situated actually in the middle of Baltimore, and a friend of mine and I did that one time when I was in college. We decided to hike the entire way across the park and see where we wound up. And we started off around Druid Hill Avenue, around Reisterstown Road, Druid Hill Avenue, and we wound up. We couldn't believe it, like all the way around Falls Road, where the old Steve silver factory used to be. Like, is that Hampton? I think that's Hampton, if I'm not mistaken. It goes like right across, the city there. So he was curious as to what was on the other side of the park, and he hiked all the way across. This was like, he was like, I think 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And he got lost, terribly lost. And he went to a policeman crying, and the policeman took him to the station. In those days, when a kid was lost, while they were calling your parents to calm you down, they would treat you to an ice cream. So he was really thrilled. The policeman treated him to an ice cream. And of course, his father came and picked him up. Okay. So then he told his younger brother, if you come with me to the park and we get lost, the policeman is going to get you an ice cream. So his brother, who was 8 years old, went with them. They hiked across the park, purposely got themselves lost. And so my father went up to a policeman. Hey, I'm lost. The policeman says, okay. I don't know if it was the same policeman or not, but he said he said he was having a good time. He had an ice cream cone, but he says his younger brother was so upset he was crying and crying and crying and couldn't eat the ice cream.
Poor buddy.
So then he tried it the third time. This time his father came to the police station and beat him, and whipped him on the touch and yelled at him and says, next time you get lost like that, you can stay lost.
That's awesome. But tell me about at, like you said, at 16 he left home.
Well, yeah, he had a very sad home situation, and his father made him quit high school when he was 16 to work with him on the truck. And it was one day where his father was really getting on his case. His father was not, I don't know. I guess, yes, I can't judge his father. I wasn't raised in the Ukraine in the early 1900s, so I don't know how I would have turned out being raised in that environment. But his father was really on his case and yelling at him. It was one of these days where, his father was in one of these moods where where his son could do nothing right, and how dare he live and breathe. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So my father got so irritated that as the truck was rounding a corner, he was sitting on the back of the truck. As it was rounding a corner slowly, he jumped off and just ran and decided he was not going to take it anymore. He hitchhiked all the way to New York. And when he got to New York, he met a group of Black teenagers, and they invited him to come live with them. They lived like in this shanty, like this shack. They were all homeless. This was the Depression. These Black kids were all homeless and basically just living together in this little shack, trying to do whatever they could to earn money, however they could. Well, these teenagers, being Black, were not able to find jobs, but my father, being white, was able to find a job giving out advertisements, like bills, what's that called? Hand advertisements. What would you call
just
them?
advertisements, just handing out advertisements.
Yeah, there's a certain term for them? Bills, something.
Bills, maybe. I think
Handbills.
bills.
Handbills.
Maybe.
Is it handbills? Something like that. A certain term for them. And so my father would help them buy. He would take the little bit of money he earned, and he would buy hot dogs for the cheapest thing you could buy. So he would buy hot dogs for everybody, so at least they could eat. So he told one of the Black kids there, he says, hey, why don't you come with me and I'll take you to the boss. I'm sure the boss will give you a job too. And this boy said to him, no, he says, don't you understand? He says, they're not going to give me a job. I'm Black. And so my father, of course, they called themselves in those days Negroes. So my father, said, come on. My father could not believe that somebody would deny a job to someone just because their skin was Black. So my father took this boy to the boss, and the boss he said to him, I can't give your friend a job. Because why not? He goes, because he's a Negro. And my father was furious, and he yelled at the guy. He says, you're nothing but a mean, nasty SOB. He really yelled at the guy. After that, my father lost his job too. But he apologized to this kid. He felt so badly. He says, I can't believe it. He says that they wouldn't give you a job just because your skin is Black.
Mm. That's well. Did he go back to? Then he went back to Baltimore, or he stayed in New York?
What happened was he managed to find another job selling as a newsie. He got a job as a newsie selling newspapers. And one day I don't know where he was, someplace downtown in New York. I don't know if it was Times Square or something. And he's selling newspapers, and he hears a voice behind him say, hey, Sonny, I'd like to buy a newspaper. Familiar voice. Turns around, there's his father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his father felt badly and went up to New York and was looking around for him. I think he went to the police, and they said, listen, this city is full of teenage boys that, are looking for jobs and looking to earn money. And so the police suggested to my grandfather that a lot of the boys that come here to New York do get jobs as newsies, and maybe looking like Times Square, like Central Park. Look, they named him some of the main areas of New York where these boys sell newspapers. He says, maybe you can find him in one of these places. Wow. And my grandfather found him.
Interesting. And he didn't get beaten for that or anything like that?
No, he did not get beaten. I think my grandfather kind of learned his lesson after that.
That's very interesting.
But so anyway, one of the other things we wanted to discuss tonight was lousy movies, lousy performances.
Well, I'd love to talk about that, but I think we're actually out of time.
Don't we? Okay, so maybe we can do it
Yeah.
for another time then.
We'll save that for another time, though. It's a nice
Hey.
idea.
By the way, what did you have? You never told me totally all that you've done when that almost got you
Oh,
arrested.
we're out of time. We'll have
Yeah.
another story. We'll have to figure something out. Oh, well.
Didn't you get in some trouble in Israel?
Oh, we won't go in there. Yeah, not just yet. But thank you so much for the listeners for listening. We really appreciate it and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Please like and share and find us on Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother Podcast. We are looking forward to hearing from you.